I meet people where they are. I know that a lot of times hate is something that you learn. I remember when I was younger and I had a friend named Toby, and he was a Caucasian male. We were the best friends until we got to high school when things changed because I went to basically an all African American school, and his mother didn't want him going to that school. So then, he started associating with people that looked like him more. I started associating with people who looked like me more. And though we lived maybe 4 houses apart, what I'm saying, our friendship changed.
Felipe, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. So as we like to do with every guest, as you said in the run-up, eye contact as your tip for navigating difficult conversations. What is it about eye contact that you find to be valuable in navigating difficult conversations?
I find that eye contact shows attention. If your eyes divert, for instance, you might be distracted or feeling anxiety. If you look down a lot, you might be focusing more, but you also might be nervous or upset. Eye contact tells me whether or not to keep going or to peel back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Your eyes are a window to your soul. They pretty much tell you everything, what's going on. I wear glasses, so sometimes lights reflect off my things. So sometimes people can't gauge my eyes, but if they were able to see my eyes, they would be able to tell, the interest level, whether or not I'm uncomfortable, whether or not I'm very interested. The bigger they are, the more excited I am. The smaller they are, the more intent on thought I might be. I think the eyes will just tell a lie. I think the eyes is one of the best nonverbals that we have.
That's such a good, man, that's such good thought and detail on that. That's the first time we've actually received that answer, and I really like it. I think that's one of the things that makes this hard, like doing the video thing versus getting to sit in a circle and actually have this conversation. But thank you for that.
It's one of the things that, as everybody gets so excited about virtual work, and you're even putting out like post-COVID, what can you do in virtual world to maintain connection, maintain happiness? And I think there is an over-index on the productivity of this remoteness because you don't get to make eye contact. Like I'm staring at a camera right now just to look like I'm staring at you, right? And then you're looking at me, but I can't see you looking at me. So it is, I think, one of the biggest missing pieces of this virtual connection that you cannot replace. But so do you find it, because I actually find it difficult to maintain eye contact. Do you find it difficult to maintain eye contact?
When I was younger, maybe more unsure of myself, had some doubt within myself, I think that eye contact might have been more difficult, especially as I had imposter syndrome regarding my role as a therapist in America. I think I might have had more difficulty with eye contact. I felt that as I became more sure of myself, as I became more confident in my abilities and the contributions I bring to this world, I think eye contact is easier for me. And not only that, I think it really cements that connection, that if I'm not as intent on you, then I might not be making eye contact, then I might not be as focused on what you're saying or what you're doing or what you need and what I'm to receive.
If somebody refuses to make eye contact, say they're not making eye contact, whether it's hard for them or they're just not engaged, how do you respond? Like, what does that do to you as a communicator when you see that?
I don't have a problem with it because I suffered with the same behaviors through much of my life, so I understand, not being able to make eye contact, not trusting or not as quick to make a rapport with somebody through making eye contact. And then we got to think of cultural norms. Some cultural norms feel like respect is not making eye contact. So just being, keen on that. So I don't have a problem with those who do not. It's not even important so much that I do, but I try to maintain it so that you know that I am, especially if that speaks to your culture and how you deal with people. I want people to be the most comfortable they are or want to be or can be. And if it means that they don't have to look at me to say their story, then fine. Please tell your story any way you want to. If you want to, turn your chair all the way around, whatever works for you.
You said you used to experience that personally.
Yeah.
Does it have to do with confidence? Like what was the shift for you into more eye contact? Or what is?
I think it was multiple things.
The driver?
I come from a culture in which we probably didn't make eye contact with those we saw as superior to our others. As I threw off those shackles of believing and thinking, then I became more in tune in, I'm just as good as you are, if not more so. You know what I'm saying? Who are you to have to, I bow down to you by not looking you in your eye. So I think a lot of it was just shaking off some of the cultural norms that was infused in me. And then, just becoming more confident in myself, more confident in the things that I'm doing. But I think more than anything, it was just shaking off cultural norms that were not benefiting me. As I was raised mainly in the South, mainly in a Jim Crow type South.
How long? Okay, we're gonna put a pin right in that for the audience. How long did it take you to get to a place of comfort with yourself so that eye contact became a natural thing?
I was thinking maybe after I started getting more concrete in doing the things that I'm doing in the community. I'm deemed a highly effective therapist. I'm highly recognized in my field in North Carolina. I think with that confidence, with that acknowledgement, I had to become that person that was more confident regarding such things. I think, also going to therapy, shaking off some of the cultural norms that might have at one time defined me or I thought defined me was helpful. Understanding that, can I really, really make a connection with you if I'm not seeing you? If I'm looking away, if I'm diverted, am I showing you that I'm paying attention? That may show you a sign that I'm not connected to you.
That's good. That's gold. It is the first time we've gotten that. And I think it is an underappreciated facet of human connection in this digital world that we don't talk enough about. So I'm super glad that you mentioned it. Now, you did throw out there, as you talked about being one of the most recognized in Durham, North Carolina in your field, having to battle imposter syndrome.
Yeah. So let's go back to that pen real quick, Keith. Felipe, you said you mentioned the cultural aspects of eye contact, and then you mentioned Jim Crow South, which very direct connection for me, but I don't know that everybody else would make that connection. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. My grandmother, my paternal and maternal families, when they came from Haiti, they pretty much settled in this place called Dillon, South Carolina. Dillon is on the border of North Carolina and South Carolina. So they assimilated into how the other African descendant people were, basically becoming sharecroppers, working land that belonged to somebody else, but you was able to till it, make some profit off it. The towns were very separate. There was Newtown and there was regular Dillon, and there was, African Americans or those from African descent worked for, in many aspects, for, the Caucasians, the whites. I remember my grandmother. She was when I was around maybe early teens, she worked for a person who she cleaned and, took care of the lady of the house who was ill. I remember her interactions with the male, how she would hold her head down and talk slow or talk low and not even use the words that she would use that were more powerful in our household when she came home and prepared dinner for my grandfather and us. I remember how strong she was in the household, but how weak she was in their presence. I remember them telling us not to go to certain stores, and we being from Charleston was like, there's nowhere we can't go. But in Dillon, South Carolina, they were still very, very segregated. So there was plenty of places we're not supposed to go. And people from Charleston that went there, which wasn't often the case, I'm sure, but we stayed with our grandparents in the summertime. Boom, saying, so we saw the distinct differences between a covert racist system and an overt racist system. So in the summer, winter breaks, boom, racism. We see it right there in our face. And in school time periods, we don't see it as much, but we can feel it.
Yeah. Did Charleston have any parts that were like sundownish, or was that just when you went to visit them?
Just Dillon. Charleston's a major metropolitan, so a lot of those things did not exist. At that time they had the naval shipyard, so they had a lot of different races in that city at that time. Downtown was Rainbow Row, maybe to some degree that you're not supposed to really be on that side of town or on the Battery after a certain time, but you wasn't going to get arrested or beat up or anything normally. So I would say not as much. It wasn't as defined. You didn't really see a lot of interactions. There was a lot of segregation. As the school I went to might have had a classroom full of Caucasians. They usually went to the private schools or the charter schools where the blacks was like they couldn't afford or they weren't eligible for, not knowing that charter schools are heavily funded by the government. Private schools can be substituted in some way, funding, so you can go to those. But we're not taught that. Our cultural norms doesn't teach us that.
Keith, are you familiar with the term sundown town? I think you probably are.
Well done, sir. My next question was going to be, can you explain the term sundownish? Because I've actually never heard it before.
Sundown is basically African Americans were not to be within city limits after sundown. So if the sun went down at 6:01 p.m., if you're caught, you're going to get harassed, beat, or killed. And there's this ledger, like a magazine that they put out within African American communities that would tell you the cities that were safe for safe travel
sundown towns,
and the ones that had sundown clauses. Funny thing is, there's still many states in America that have that. We may not know of them because they're smaller towns where populations of 400 or 500 people, but they do exist in 2021.
When you talk about the Jim Crow, like, obviously your grandparents and the structural ecosystem of Jim Crow was very real during that time. From your experience, what are the remnants of that today in the places that you both live, work, travel in North Carolina?
It doesn't particularly affect where I work at now, but I used to work in a rural community called Roxborough, North Carolina. And it was very, very, very impactful in those areas, as there was distinct rules in ways which you interacted with people. You know what I'm saying? They were out racist out in front, you know what I'm saying? But still needed mental health stability and help. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of crazy. It's like I'm serving you in a mental health capacity, but you're spitting on me and calling me the N-word. Especially as I was a mobile crisis worker. So sometimes it wasn't that they came to my agency to get help. It was they was having a significant crisis in the hospital, or had to meet them at the hospital to do an assessment, or the doctor or a police officer called me out to do an assessment to see whether or not they need to be transitioned to an inpatient facility. So it was very, very evident now. Now I work in a major city, so I don't see any remnants of it at all, with the exception of the legal system, the judges, and some housing districts, some housing areas, especially as we gentrify.
How do you reconcile that you just shared, like treating someone who's spitting on you, calling you a nigger? Like, how do you reconcile that, or do you reconcile that?
I meet people where they are. I know that a lot of times hate is something that you learn. I remember when I was younger and I had a friend named Toby, and he was a Caucasian male. We were the best friends until we got to high school, when things changed, because I went to basically an all African American school, and his mother didn't want him going to that school. So then, he started associating with people that looked like him more. I started associating with people who looked like me more. And though we lived maybe 4 houses apart, our friendship changed. I remember my sister still saying, "Oh, I'm still going to hang with who I hang with and do what I want to do." She loved rock and roll music. She loved heavy metal. Skid Row is her favorite group, even to this day. I remember her being penalized by her own people because of her preferences for that particular culture or that particular music preferences. I reconcile it by just being the best me I can be anyway. And if you don't change, or if you don't change your mind, then that's on you. The funny thing is, the people that were in long-term treatment did change. The people that they might have interacted with, or media might have influenced the way they thought, may paint us in a particular way. I try to make sure that I'm the best me regardless of color. You know what I'm saying? Regardless of what you think of me. I'm not going to, you could call me the N-word all day. You can spit on me. Well, you're not going to spit on me. You're not going to do that. You can do whatever you want to do and say whatever you want today. I'm still going to do the best I can to help you, because I want to be what I would want to receive. And I might have been in a situation in which I wasn't my best me because of prejudices or a certain way of thinking. You know what I'm saying? I have to remember that we all might find ourselves in a situation in which we're not our best selves. But I always want to be the best me I can be, because if the situation was reversed, I wouldn't want you to treat me a certain way.
We could have a 3-hour conversation on that response you just gave.
Yeah.
Like that was...
Yes. The concept, it's
that's
interesting.
The one thing I can't tolerate, that spitting thing. No, it's like a blackout.
That crosses a physical line.
That enters
the
my,
words, you can do all you want, but those physical things like spitting.
Well, but I think that's an important distinction, because somebody can call you a nigger, but you get to decide how you internalize that, whether you give it your day.
Right.
And your energy,
right,
versus somebody's pushing you, hitting you, spitting you, like that's different. They've entered your physical space.
Right. I can take a push. I can take a hit. I just can't take spit.
That's a whole nother level of disrespect.
Especially if you rev it up and you get that lug in it. Oh my goodness, we're gonna fight.
So, I mean, you say something in that, like, that meet people where they are is a core tenet of what Rodney and I teach, is teaching people how to meet people where they are.
It's the first piece.
Is the first piece. Like, from your perspective, what does meeting people where they are look like, and how do you channel it even in the hardest of times?
To me, it's just like not putting myself on a pedestal when I meet with you or in my regards to you. You know what I'm saying? Not saying I'm going to dumb myself down, not saying I'm going to act like you, but allowing you to be who you are at your stage of change or at your stage of being, and accepting you at that, speaking to you at that, never speaking down on you, never using my cultural inferences to influence you, letting you know the benefits of it, but letting the motivation lie within you. And just doing it slowly. I'm saying it's what they say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You know, we'll work together. And if you're not motivated, I would try to instill the seeds for change. And and a lot of times I do see those changes. I do see them change. I do see the manifestations of becoming a better them through time. You got to think, it's like, they want the service I do. They consider it cognitive brief therapy. But, we have to zoom out a little bit. It took them 25, 35, 45 years to become the person that they are now. 6 months into a year is not going to make that light switch to what we would want them to be, which we call, the word I don't like to use, normal.
I just got this flash between the last response and this response. I got this flash of the movie Inception. And instead of Leo DiCaprio, it's Felipe. And it's just like him being a good dude and like just showing up and being that person that he wants to be, which plants those little seeds, which people water or not. And,
yeah, it's interesting when it comes to this concept that we have the tendency, especially now in the time of I want to change your mind. And it's very much a predominant layer in our interpersonal discourse. You think the way you think, I don't agree with it, so I need to get you to think the way I think. But it's not even just that, it's going to happen in this conversation, right? Like this one moment, because what we don't give credence to is the fact that of all of the moments I have, you have all those moments in your own parallel life existence. But when we meet, we treat the other person as if that's their entire existence because it is in our world. And
you need to get this thing that took me 10 years. You need to get it right now.
Absolutely. And so I love that you said that. I think it is needed so much, just this frame of meeting people where they are, especially when you consider everything that is happening. It's so easy. God, is it easy to go, why don't you get this? Like, it is so default easy. When someone's calling you the N-word, to just go, fuck them. Like, and can you blame most people, right? I mean, I can't blame them. It's not going to change anything, but at the same time, I don't blame them. And we will pause right there as we continue this conversation in a couple of days with Felipe. You know what? In the meantime, you can give us a like, you can share, you can leave us a comment, and heck, you can reach out to us and tell us what you like or don't like, and we can continue to improve the show for you. So tune in a couple of days. We'll have part 2. Hope you're enjoying the show.